Good evening from the NATO summit at The Hague in the Netherlands, where European leaders have been appealing to Donald Trump in the only language he understands, massaging his ego and offering money. The flattery has bordered on the obsequious at times, but that and the pledge to spend 5% of GDP on defence seems to have done the trick. Although Trump still couldn't hide his frustration about some European countries' creative accounting on defence spending, he was more on message than he has been on the threat from Russia and less uncertain about his commitment to NATO's founding principle that an attack on one member of the alliance is an attack on all.
The NATO allies committed to dramatically increase their defence spending to that 5% of GDP, something that no one really thought possible. And they said, "You did it, sir, you did it." Well, I don't know if I did it, but I think I did.
Well, as you can see, the formal business of the summit has just wrapped up, but the seduction of NATO-sceptic Donald Trump has been in full swing here in The Hague. After praising him as a man of strength but also of peace, NATO boss Mark Rutte, wooer-in-chief, compared him to a daddy, helping to break up a playground fight between Israel and Iran. Meanwhile, all the member states except Spain sought to impress by flashing the cash, committing to spending 5% on defence over the next decade. And from the UK, the ultimate attempt to put a ring on it. Confirmation from Buckingham Palace that preparations for Mr. Trump's state visit later this year are well underway. Our political editor, Gary Gibbon, has this.
Another king deployed to woo the president. The King of the Netherlands put Donald Trump up for the night at his palace.
Well, I hope you slept well.
It was great.
Before the president went to sleep at 1 a.m. local time, he tweeted out this 1980s parody song from his room. Everyone here wanted a moment with the president. The world waited to hear his latest take on the US attempt to wipe out Iran's nuclear facilities. 4 days after President Trump gave his own instant verdict on the success of US bombing raids on Iran's nuclear facilities,
Completely and totally obliterated.
US headlines proclaimed his own intelligence assessments doubted that verdict.
CNN is scum. MSDNC is scum. The New York Times is scum. They're bad people. They're sick.
His team piled in, the denials not always compelling.
When you actually look at the report, by the way, it was a top secret report, it was preliminary, it was low confidence, all right, so this isn't, you make assessments based on what you know.
And it said it could be very devastating, very serious.
Moderate to severe, and we believe far more likely severe and obliterated.
The intelligence was very inconclusive. Okay. The intelligence says we don't know. It could have been very severe. That's what the intelligence says. So I guess that's correct. But I think we can take that we don't know. It was very severe. It was obliteration. That hit ended the war. I don't want to use an example of Hiroshima. I don't want to use an example of Nagasaki. But that was essentially the same thing. That ended that war. This ended that with the war.
No gavel, but a submarine sonar ping brought the NATO leaders to order.
32 nations stand as one.
To keep unity, NATO tried to keep the conversation to something Donald Trump actually agreed with member states on. They should spend much more, 5% of GDP, on their defences by 2035.
We meet at a dangerous moment for our 1 billion citizens.
The entire purpose of NATO's rearmament programme is to fend off Russian aggression. To keep America on side, though, all mention of Russia was kept out of the final communiqué. The object of today was to get Donald Trump to come here and stay in the room, and thereby conceal NATO's fundamental disagreements with him.
Thank you. I stayed through every one of those speeches. Everyone. And some were good and some weren't quite as good. Right?
After a meeting with President Zelensky, Donald Trump's language on Ukraine, for today at least, seemed to edge very slightly closer to the central NATO view.
The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff,
General Kane.
Yes, he has said that Mr. Putin has territorial ambitions beyond Ukraine. Do you view that in the same way?
Possible. I mean, it's possible. I know one thing he'd like to settle. I consider him a person that's I think, been misguided. I'm very surprised, actually. Where are you from?
I'm from Ukraine.
Oh,
so my
wow.
question to you is whether or not the U.S. is ready to sell anti-air missile systems, Patriot, to Ukraine.
We're going to see if we can make some available. You know, they're very hard to get. We need them too.
We need to now push harder on Ukraine, and I think that reflects the mood in the room, and that it's time for Putin to come to the table. And so that's been the subject not only of the discussions in the summit, but actually of many of the discussions over dinner last night and in the margins.
There's scepticism about whether member countries really will get to 5% of GDP defence spend, 3.5% on core defence. Though only Spain openly wriggled out of the commitment, others sounded keen to follow.
We will certainly also try to achieve our capability targets and, if possible, spend less than 3.5% of our GDP.
Oh, I think Spain's terrible what they've done. No, I do. They're the only country that won't pay the full up. They want to stay at 2%. I think it's terrible. And, you know, they're doing very well. The economy is very well. And that economy could be blown right out of the water with something bad happening. Oh, fake news, CNN?
There were parting snarls for the press who'd questioned his assertion that America had obliterated Iran's nuclear missile program.
He is not nice at all.
President Trump said he had new evidence from Israel's nuclear authority to back him up. President Trump said he'd warmed to the NATO leaders in the room, but he started trade conflicts with most of them. They know his mood can swing fast and decisively, and they had to park or hide many central commitments of this military alliance to get through this meeting and keep him from signalling discord to the enemy to the east.
Well, while President Trump said both sides in the Israel-Iran conflict were tired and exhausted, wanting to go home, the ceasefire he's brokered appears far from sturdy. And there is confusion, too, over exactly how much of Iran's nuclear program was actually destroyed in the US attack, with doubts over its efficacy expressed in that leaked intelligence report. President Trump, however, clings to his belief that every facility in Iran capable of developing a nuclear weapon has been wiped off the map. From Tel Aviv, here's our chief correspondent, Alex Thompson.
Obliteration there certainly is in Iran, no question. This one of many apartment blocks struck in Israel's 12-day war. But it is obliteration of Iran's nuclear program, which is the Trump mantra.
Total obliteration.
Obliterated. Complete and total obliteration. Obliterated.
Cue Israel's Prime Minister addressing the nation late yesterday, saying an historic end to the threat of national annihilation, no less, has been achieved.
We destroyed the main enrichment facility at Natanz, the uranium conversion plant at Isfahan, and the heavy water installation at Harrach. Our friend, President Trump, stood alongside us in an unprecedented manner. On his order, the US military destroyed the enrichment facility deep underground at Bordeaux.
But that was before the leaked military report suggesting Iran's Fordow underground nuclear facility had not been obliterated. Its national nuclear program only put back 6 months. First that claim, and then, hardly a coincidence, a counterclaim this afternoon from Israel's Atomic Energy Commission, which assesses the war
has set back Iran's ability to develop nuclear weapons by many years.
In Tel Aviv, the former commander of Army intelligence on Iran gave us his battle damage assessment.
I really hope that we create a great damage and the regime understands that it's not just about the nuclear weapon, it's about the regime itself, the security of the regime, and they won't do it in the near future. I think that they will go back to the nuclear program in the longer term. And then, of course, we will have to do some operation in order to stop them.
And in Tehran today, Iran's parliament voted against future cooperation with the IAEA, the global nuclear watchdog. From the religious leaders, where power really resides, though, the message, we have the right to peaceful nuclear power. Back in Israel, Trump's obliteration mantra just won't cut it with the far right, reinvigorated in their view now that only overthrowing Iran's ayatollahs, regime change, will suffice.
We need to continue working hard to bring down the regime, and we shouldn't talk about it, we should do it.
A funeral this afternoon in Tel Aviv from the other war, Gaza. 20-year-old Ronald Ben Moshe, one of 7 soldiers blown up in the Strip yesterday. This, the news dominating here today, not Iran's nuclear ambitions. And another funeral today, this one in Gaza itself, for Mahmoud Abu Shabi, a journalist. More than 170 journalists have now been killed there, almost all of them Palestinian. Israel bans foreign media from entering the Strip.